So I want to talk about a very, very unusual man. His name is Vladimir Putin. I want to tell you what I think is going to happen. And what in the world is he doing at the helm of Russia? Because it's a miracle, you see. Putin's a very interesting person. Okay, so the first thing to wonder is like, what's going on here? I mean, all the Russian dictators hated Jews. They hated them. From all the way from the beginning, from the czars, even before that, you know, they hated Jews. It's a place that's rife, saturated with Jewish blood. When you look at all the pogroms that these guys have done in Russia, it's astounding how many Jews they've killed. But besides the amount of Jews that they've killed, they destroyed Judaism. Most Jews are gone. Most Russians are gone. You know, okay, now it's a little different, but in them, you know, I'll never forget, I heard a story once, you know. I mean, it's heartening, it's disheartening. You know, but so there was a family in Russia. This one, when you have, I forgot whether it was Brezhnev, one of those characters, you know. I mean, talking about Rishonim Gemurim, you know, but there was a family that they used to eat on Yom Kippur, and it was a Suda. They used to make a Suda on Yom Kippur. You know, they invited the whole family. So you say, excuse me, what? You make a commemoration, a celebration on Yom Kippur? So they once asked him, well, what's the story here? He said, well, we don't remember what Yom Kippur is about, but we know from our grandparents and so on and so forth that Yom Kippur was special to the Jews. We figure a day that's special to the Jews, you probably have a meal, right? So we made a commemorative meal. We get the whole family together and we eat on Yom Kippur, you know, because that's probably what it was, right? It's not what you do on a holiday for the Jews. Could you imagine how far they were from Judaism, Yiddishkeit? It's astounding. All because of communism and all those Rishonim that were communists. Astounding when you think about that. And this is good. At least they remembered Yom Kippur was a holiday. What about all those Jews that don't even know anything about Judaism? So not only did they kill Jews left and right, they destroyed their religion and so on, you know. Anyway, so therefore the history of Russia really, essentially, is really a history of anti-Semitism. It's really what it is. So the question is, what happened? How did they get a guy like Putin? Now, I want to read you, I took this because Zman wrote an article, Zman magazine, called The Putin Enigma. So they have a very short biography. I don't know if you guys read it. You guys read it? Very interesting, you know, to read about this guy, you know. But when you begin to read it, it strikes you. I'm going to read this and quote from them, okay? What they say, and then I'm going to comment what I think is how it's part of the divine plan. Because this is so far out that it needs an explanation. And I'm always tempted by those things that need an explanation to try to explain it. Okay, you guys with me? Now you guys can see if I know how to read. Crushing Anti-Semitism, Putin Style. That's the name of the article. Okay. Putin has ruthlessly suppressed violent forms of anti-Semitism in Russia. Incredible. To the relief of the Russian Jewish community. He has also made it a point to attend Jewish functions. It's not just that he's stopping anti-Semitism, he comes to Jewish functions, right? Such as the opening of Jewish Museum and Tolerance Center in Moscow, right? To which he contributed $50 million of state funds. That's a commitment. And even symbolically donated 1 month of his presidential salary. You believe what this guy? It's like, what? Who are we talking about here? We're talking about an Oyev Yisrael, a Jew lover. There he was joined by the then president of Israel, Shimon Peres, and Russia's chief rabbi, Beryl Lazar, sometimes dubbed Putin's rabbi. Imagine, Putin's rabbi. Now, Putin also attended Hanukkah celebrations. and conveying war messages to Jews on Rosh Hashanah. Utterly unprecedented. I mean, this is incredible, right? Especially from a nationalist Russian leader. You know, it's like Ripley's Believe It or Not. That's what it sounds like. Now, Russia and the Soviet Union have a long, sordid and bloody history of anti-Semitism. The Russian Tsars enacted anti-Semitic legislation, subjecting the Jews to an inferior status and forcing them to live in a pale of settlement far away from the large cities. It's obvious that's what they want, incredible anti-Semites. In fact, the word pogrom originated in Russia and refers to violent attacks by non-Jews on Jewish civilians in the Russian Empire. You know, the first known pogrom is believed to have occurred in Odessa in 1821. Some Russians blame Jews for the assassination of Tsar Alexander II in 1881, which triggered pogroms and discriminatory May laws in 1882. Anti-Semitic laws and pogroms led many Jews to reassess life in the Russian Empire, causing more than 2 million to emigrate to the United States and Eretz Israel. I mean, obviously it's Gehenna. It was a Mamish Gehenna in Russia. As late as 1990s, Jews were scapegoated as the source of Russia's economic and social problems. Well, 25 years ago? Several of the prominent Russian oligarchs, these groups that controlled Russia, were Jewish. And angry Russian commentators and politicians made sure to emphasize that fact, obviously to promote anti-Semitism. Now, political commentator E.C. Liebler, someone who met with Soviet ministers and officials for three decades to promote the liberation of Soviet Jewry, wrote, this is what he writes: when the Soviet Union existed, communist Russia, I was able to appreciate firsthand the obsessive anti-Semitism underlying the Kremlin's policy toward Israel and the Jews. Obsessive means they just couldn't get it out of their mind. Now look at what he says. There are no rational explanations for Putin's extraordinary positive attitude toward Jews. There's no rational explanation for this, which some have gone as far as to describe as being motivated by philo-Semitism, Oyev Yisrael. Right? It's astounding. According to him, there's no rational explanation. But there is. But he says, it would appear. Some say he was influenced as a youngster by his Jewish German teacher, which we'll read about in a second. He may also be highly sophisticated and pragmatic, and having seen the outcome of Soviet anti-Semitism, which was very destructive, because the Jews are always very good economically, may have come to a realization that Jewish support would represent an asset of many levels. Okay? And then it goes into the laws that Putin has passed to prevent anti-Semitism, to convict people of anti-Semitism. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's not just, make sure that the Jews are not destroyed. We are talking about a guy that is actively trying to save Jews, promote Jews, and promote their religion. I mean, talking about Russia, you know what it's like, Lamar David, right? It's like the Sultan is now promoting mitzvahs. Think about that. That's what it sounds like, right? Putin has also personally intervened in specific cases of anti-Semitism, and so on. And he brings down that he intervened in a certain case against a Jewish person, and he intervened. He reduced drastically the sentence that they gave him. And then nevertheless, this pining for the Soviet past has not had a significant anti-Semitic component. In fact, anti-Semitism does not seem to be a large-scale problem in Russia today. You believe this? In recent polls, almost 60% of Russians have a good or very good attitude toward Israel, compared to less than 20% bad or very bad. In 2013, the Russian Jewish Congress documented only 10 anti-Semitic attacks and acts of vandalism compared to dozens in France. This is in Russia. I got to get to this one, right? On January 19, 2016, it's a couple of months ago. Listen to this. This is really funny. At a meeting in the Kremlin with the European Jewish Congress, Putin met with the Jewish Congress. Putin expressed that in light of recent anti-Semitic attacks in Europe, European Jews should take refuge in Russia. I mean, you realize what he's saying, right? Let the Jews come to us then. Putin replied upon hearing about rising European anti-Semitism, adding that, right, during the Soviet period they were leaving the country and now they should return. You know? So Jonathan Arkush, chairman of the European Jewish Community Congress General Assembly, suggested that Putin was saying it in a lighthearted way. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The reaction of all of us around the table was to laugh. Everybody was laughing. You know, it's like the fox inviting the chickens, right, into his den. This is why you guys come to live, because everybody else is out there trying to kill you. Want to come to us. This is the fox, right? And President Putin smiled when he said it. So I think he was probably aware of the irony, you know. Arkush said, nevertheless, Arkush admitted that the offer highlights an uncomfortable truth for Europe. Putin has been far more successful in combating anti-Semitism than European leaders. It's astounding. Look, this is what's called a mapecha. This is a revolution in the Russia's attitude toward the Jews. Now, you need to understand why. President Putin's apparently positive feeling toward Jews may have roots in some important relationships from his early life. Now you see the hashgacha elyono. Remember I talked about last week Trump, what the Rebbe did for him? He made him a billionaire, so he's not subject to any special interests, and he'll deliver his promises. The second thing is that Trump is in real estate in New York, right? And we know most people, not most, but a lot of people in real estate are Jews. So he has a tremendous liking and familiarity with Jews. And the third thing is his daughter Ivanka, she's from. You know, she's modern, but she's from. You know, so he clearly, and his son-in-law, not his son-in-law, and the chief legal advisor to his real estate empire is from a guy who he wants to make a liaison to Israel. I mean, you know, how the Rebbe sets this up is incredible. But look what he did for Putin. The question is why, which I will go into. Putin grew up in one of Leningrad's toughest neighborhoods, and his parents were not a strong presence in his life, which basically means he was abandoned. Not literally, but, you know, I mean, certainly emotionally. I mean, you're on your own, kid. A religious Jewish family that lived in his apartment block in Leningrad welcomed him into their home. Isn't that interesting? And shared their meager accommodations with him so he would be less tempted to roam the streets. What a chesed, right? They took him in. It's so they became surrogate parents. In an autobiography, Putin describes the family as observant Jews who did not work on Saturdays, and the man would study the Bible and Talmud all day long. What does that sound like, you know? It's a kollel young man. Except he wasn't in kollel, because if he went to kollel, he'd be killed, right? Once I even asked him what he was muttering, and he explained to me what this book was, and I was immediately interested. He told him what the Gemara is. So that's one guy. Obviously, had a tremendous influence. What shows that Putin has a tremendous hakar satoiv. Anyway, so that was one. Putin's judo coach in his youth, Anatoly Ralin, was Jewish. His judo coach. He trained Putin from ages 13 to 28. That's why Putin is a black belt in judo. And once described himself as Putin's second father. Imagine what a relationship he had with Putin. I was with him 15 years. His mother died, his father died, I am a second father. You begin to realize what's going on here, the connection that he had to Jews. On Rocklin's 75th birthday, in May 2013, Putin presented him with a Medal of Honor for his achievements in Russian judo. You see. When he died later, that is, Ralin died, the judo teacher, Putin issued a statement that he was deeply saddened and that Ralin's death was a big, irreplaceable loss for all of us. Reportedly, Putin attended the funeral and even shed tears. He's crying for a Jew. Because obviously he was a tremendous surrogate father to Putin. Then one more. When Putin traveled to Israel in 2005, he paid a surprise visit to his old high school German teacher that was mentioned before, a Jewish woman named Mina Yuditskaya, Berliner. She hadn't seen him since she made Aliyah in 1973. But his special visit, so he visited her, right? But his special visit proved that she had been a significant influence on his life during his formative years. Could you imagine Putin comes to Israel and the whole Knesset, I mean, there's Putin with Russia, everybody's there, welcome committee, right? So they ask him, what can we do for you? Where do you want to go? I mean, the whole government is at his beck and call, right? So he says, well, I want to visit my old German Jewish teacher in Tel Aviv, right? They probably had a heart attack. Listen to this, right? Now, during the meeting, the 94-year-old widow, this was in 2005, mentioned that she lived in a run-down apartment in Tel Aviv's Florentine district. Listen to this. By the time Putin departed Israel, she was the owner of a new apartment in the heart of downtown Tel Aviv, courtesy of a former student. Isn't that incredible?
Wow.
Putin also has a circle of wealthy and influential Jewish friends. Some have been buddies since his childhood, like Arkady and Boris Rottenberg, who trained together with him under Coach Ralin, judo. They're buddies, Jewish buddies. The brothers stuck close to their childhood pal, Putin, right, and have benefited enormously, such as $5.5 billion in construction contracts. They were awarded in connection with the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics. Each brother is estimated to have a net worth of around $2 billion. Not bad. What am I trying to show here? Like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, It's like the guy said, it's irrational. He doesn't understand why Putin is a philo-Judaism, which means an Oiv Israel. And it says here that, whenever they have meetings or whatever, he's Jewish. This guy Beryl, or whatever his name is, the chief rabbi, is a pal of his. I mean, he's about as close as you can get to a guy who's an Oiv Israel. It's astounding. But you see, what did the Moshe do? Now let's take a look at it at a larger scale. Why is he doing this? Not only that, Putin should never have been the prime minister, whatever he is, right? You don't realize it was a stroke of luck, as they say, because what happened was he was a KGB, he was in Germany for all the years, and then all of a sudden he went back and he became an important right-hand guy to Yeltsin. You see, and Yeltsin was very corrupt. I mean, Yeltsin was like, forget it, right? So Yeltsin knew that his time was coming to the end, right? But he was afraid that whoever's going to take over his job, which is the chief guy of the prime minister of the Soviet Union, is going to convict him. He's going to go after him. You know how much money the guy must have stolen? So he appointed Putin to be the prime minister because he knew Putin is very loyal to him, won't convict him. Believe this? So Putin got in, right, in order for Yeltsin to avoid jail time, right? That's how he got in. Once he was in, of course, he took advantage of it, right? Eliminated all his rivals and all that kind of stuff, which is usually what goes on. But why did the Bansham do that? Clearly the Bansham said, enough is enough. Russia is the Ra Esav, if you remember what I said, that Esav is divided into three parts. Russia is the Ra of Esav. That's why communism, which is incredibly atheistic, can only survive 70 years. And that's the Vayives Esav is Bechira, and Esav despised the Bechira. That was communism, because Russia is really the Russian Orthodox Church. It's really Edom. It's really what it is. It's Christian. And he put him in Oyev Yisrael to make sure he connected him. He made sure that his parents, whatever, wouldn't take care of him. And as a result of that, he developed tremendous friends, associations with Jews who were very kind to him. And he never forgot it. Could you imagine Putin visits Israel and everybody's running after him to please him and so on? And he says, I want to see my Alta Boba, you know, my Jewish teacher friend in Tel Aviv. And then a guy pays for a real, I guarantee the apartment must have been deluxe in the downtown Tel Aviv. I mean, you know, what a curse at Toiv. It's astounding. The question we have to ask ourselves is, what's going on here? Wait a minute. Russia is evil, right? But we find now that it's true that Putin is a terrible dictator. There's no question about that, right? But why is the Russia want Putin to be head of the Russian government? What's going on here? You had a question?
Yeah, interestingly, of all the world leaders on the world stage, Putin.
Who does that remind you of? Putin. Putin looks at the West, he couldn't care less. Took over Ukraine, Crimea, no problem. You know, he's probably got his sights on other stuff, you know. He couldn't care less. He'd rather not alienate the West. But this man defies the West, and he laughs at Obama, you know. What does that sound like? Sounds like Trump, doesn't it? The Bansham is picking him because of the same concept, the defiance. Now you know why he learned judo. Because what is a guy, when a guy learns judo and he's a black belt, I think Putin is a 5th degree or 6th degree black belt. You don't want to mess with Putin, that's for sure. You know what I'm saying? Guys who are really masters of the martial arts, boy, are they defiant. They're not afraid of anybody. You see? All of this is incredible hashgacha, that he should have an incredible characteristic called unbelievable arrogance and defiance, and also be very, very intelligent. That's what you see so far. The question we have to ask ourselves is why? That's why. But there's no question that you begin to see that he is chosen for a specific mission, just like Trump is. He is chosen for a specific mission to defy the world. Why? Anybody figure it out? This is called Prophecy Workshop. You know enough information to figure it out.
He has to come to the aid of Faisal.
Oh, very good.
Together with Trump, they'll destroy the Arabs.
Beautiful. Exactly. If I had a medal, I'd pin it on both of you guys. Because what the bunch, but you have to add one more thing. But you have to add one more thing. What's going to happen? Israel will war with Iran and begin to destroy it. Basically, I believe Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, right? Hamas, all these guys are going to jump in the fray. But not only that, it'll be the last attempt of the Arabs. And who will also jump in, probably, will be the Israeli Arabs. Right? Now the problem is this. We know that the Israel will be incredibly condemned. We know that. It goes on all the time. Even when Israel's right, they're always wrong. Right? They're always condemned. Because that's the anti-Semitism of the world. Therefore, Trump is going to aid them, which I said last week. That's why the bunch of them wants him. He will defy the world, right, America, and enable Israel to do its job. You see, but I believe that something much worse, what Israel is doing is much worse. I believe that Israel will evict the Arabs because of the enormous danger that the Arabs now present to the integrity of the Jewish state. But what's always the problem? What's the problem?
The EU.
The EU is one, but what's happening with the EU? They're being diminished. So Bonsham is taking out the possible obstructions of Trump, right? So the EU is being diminished, correct? You see why? Not only is it an einish, now you understand that Bonsham is removing the capacity of Europe to obstruct the resistance against the world when they begin to attack the Arabs and to defend themselves.
What about the UN?
That's not the UN. It's really the nations that control the UN. So the Arabs themselves are being destroyed, right? America's defending Israel. The EU is now a third-rate class. But who's always the greatest obstructions against Israel? Who? Russia. They're always the greatest. They're the ones who opposed Israel all the time. Remember the 1975 UN, right? Where they said Zionism is the same as what? Racism. That was a famous statement that they said. They're the ones who came up with that stuff. So therefore Russia's always the obstruction. So the question is, even if Trump defends Israel, right? Russia's going to go crazy. Because Russia sides usually on the side of who? Of the Arabs. You know, Iran, they did, you know, right? So what happened? The Muslim says, Zog sich nicht, in Yiddish, which means don't worry. I am now going to put an Oyev Yisrael in Russia. So now Russia and Trump are going to defy the world. Wow. What a partnership. Isn't that interesting? That's what you see is happening. If you really think about it, it's incredible. Because what's happening in Russia is unbelievable. Like this guy said, it doesn't make sense. It's never happened before. Because the Russia now is weakening the enemies of the Jews, right? And he's strengthening the people, the allies of the Jews. But Russia was always against against the Jews. And not only Russia's part of the Security Council. They've always made tremendous problems. So what the Bolshevik did is incredible. He said, just remove the enemy. How? Put a guy like Putin in. So Putin is not only an Oyev Yisrael, he's a tremendous Makat Toiv. That's the critical. There are guys who like Israel, right? But they don't go to that extent. He's going all the way, you see. He's Makat Toiv, and so on. $50 million to some Jewish museum.
It's real estate television.
It's like, and there's another reason why, another reason why Putin likes Israel, which funny he said that. Not only is he an Oyev Yisrael, where he protects the Jews, and he gives money to the Jews, he's giving money to all kinds of organizations all over Russia to promote Judaism. In fact, he's probably the biggest Mabritz Torah in Russia. You know what I'm saying? He's head of the Kirov movement in Russia, you know. But Putin said something very interesting. Putin, there is between 500 and 1 million Russians in Israel. So Putin said, hey, I got 1 million of my citizens there. Most of these guys have passports of Russia. So I got all my people, I got to protect them. So therefore I have to protect Israel. You see? So the whole concept of a Russian, immigration to Israel was to again solidify Putin's connection to Israel, the Jewish state, because now Israel has become a Russian satellite. Interesting.
Russia's been directly in conflict with the Arabs because of their oil.
Yeah.
Right. They don't want to economically get destroyed.
Who?
Russia.
Yeah.
Because of the competition with the Arabs. The Arabs are desperate to sell oil now.
Yeah, well, but what I'm saying is, therefore, what the Russians see, the Russians doing is weakening the enemies of the Jews, because it's not just, I believe, it's not that just Jews will will really war against the Arabs and really wipe them out. The problem is also that I believe they try to evict the Arabs. Nobody, the world will not stand for that. You see, so therefore, if Russia and the U.S. stand with the Jews, and the Europe is now severely diminished, it'll work. But it's incredible to see the chess pieces going on here. I mean, you have to appreciate this chess game, you know, where you see what the Bonsham is doing in order to, something that will occur many years from now, many years, whatever that means, you know. And what the Rebbeinu Shalom is doing